There's a moment tonight, before you've even fallen asleep, that will decide how dangerous tomorrow morning is for your heart. Not tomorrow, tonight. And almost nobody watching this video has ever connected the two. Because they happen 12 hours apart and feel completely unrelated, I want you to think about the last time you woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, sat up fast in the dark, and felt that quick wave of dizziness before your eyes adjusted. Most people brush that off as just getting older. I'm going to show you tonight why that moment, and the 90 seconds around it, might be one of the more important pieces of information about your heart that nobody has ever sat you down and explained. I'm Dr. Franklin, and this is Health Wellness. If you're new here, this channel is built for one audience, men and women in their 60s, 70s, and 80s who want to understand what's actually happening inside their bodies, not just be handed a prescription and sent home. Today we're talking about your heart, but not in the way you've heard it talked about 100 times before. Not cholesterol, not your daily walk. We're talking about timing, about what your cardiovascular system is doing during the hours nobody thinks to ask about, and a handful of small, free adjustments that may help you move through those hours more safely. Before I go further, tell me something in the comments. How many times, if any, do you typically get up during the night? 0, once, 2 or 3 times? I ask because what I'm about to share applies differently depending on the answer, and I genuinely want to know who's watching today. Let's start with something most people have never thought about, and it may surprise you. Your heart doesn't experience night as one long uniform stretch of rest. It experiences it more like a series of shifting weather systems, each with its own pressures and risks. Somewhere between 2 and 4 in the morning, your body is typically at its most relaxed cardiovascular state of the entire day. Blood pressure low, heart rate slow, blood vessels open and calm. Then, closer to dawn, a completely different pattern starts building. Your body begins preparing for wakefulness hours before you actually open your eyes. And that preparation involves hormones that, frankly, your heart has to work harder to manage the older it gets. Here's a number that genuinely surprised me the first time I came across it in cardiology literature. Cardiac events, heart attacks, dangerous rhythm disturbances, strokes, cluster heavily in a narrow window in the early morning hours, occurring notably more often than during the rest of the day combined. Researchers have observed this pattern across multiple large studies for years, and while no single explanation accounts for all of it, one consistent thread keeps showing up. The way the body handles the transition out of sleep, and specifically, how quickly a person moves from lying down to standing up. Stay with me, because what I want to walk you through next isn't just get up slowly, which you may have already heard. I want to show you why that advice actually works, biologically, and then give you something almost nobody talks about, how what happens earlier at night sets up whether tomorrow morning is a smooth transition or a risky one. Let's talk about your arteries first, because this is where age changes the equation in a way most people don't realize. When you were younger, your arteries were elastic. Think of a fresh rubber hose. They could absorb a sudden pressure change and bounce back instantly. Somewhere in your 60s, 70s, and beyond, that elasticity naturally decreases. Your arterial walls stiffen. Picture that same hose after years of sun exposure. Less give, less flexibility. That stiffness means your cardiovascular system has a much smaller margin for error when it comes to sudden pressure surges, whether they happen from stress, temperature change, or simply standing up. Now layer onto that something called nocturnal fluid shift. During the hours you're lying flat, fluid in your body redistributes. Some of it moves out of your legs and into your upper body and chest. For most people, this is harmless. But if you already have some narrowing in your coronary arteries, and many people over 60 do, often without any symptoms and without knowing it, this fluid shift can very slightly increase the workload on your heart overnight, particularly in the hours before dawn. This is one of the quieter reasons some cardiologists believe cardiac strain builds gradually through the night, rather than appearing suddenly at sunrise. Then comes the hormonal piece, and this is the part I really want you to understand, not just know about. In the hours before you wake, your body begins releasing cortisol in a natural rising pattern, along with adrenaline. This is completely normal. It's your body's built-in alarm clock, priming you for activity before your actual alarm ever goes off. In a younger body, this hormonal wave is met with flexible vessels and a quick-responding nervous system, so it passes through almost unnoticed. In a body with stiffer arteries, some degree of arterial plaque that may not show up on a standard checkup, and a slower responding nervous system reflex, that same completely normal hormonal wave can become the tipping point that turns a stable, hidden vulnerability into an active problem. I want to be very clear about something here, because I never want to cause fear without giving you something useful to do with that information. This does not mean waking up is dangerous. It does not mean you should be afraid to go to sleep or afraid to get out of bed. It means there is a narrow, specific window where your cardiovascular system is working a little harder than usual, and a few small free habits may help ease that transition. That's the whole point of this video. Let me tell you about a woman I'll call Doris. 74 years old, sharp as anyone I've ever treated, walked every single day without fail, ate well, took her medications exactly as prescribed. Her annual checkups were, in her words, boringly normal, which is exactly what you want to hear from your doctor. One night she got up around 3 a.m., as she often did, to use the bathroom. She swung her legs off the bed and stood up in one motion, same as she'd done for decades, without a second thought. She told me the room tilted. She grabbed the dresser, steadied herself, and the moment passed in a few seconds. She didn't mention it to anyone. It happened again 2 nights later, and again the following week, slightly worse, lasting longer. By the time she brought it up to me, almost as an afterthought, tacked onto the end of an appointment about something else entirely, we discovered her blood pressure was dropping significantly upon standing, a pattern called orthostatic hypotension. It's estimated that a meaningful percentage of adults over 70 experience this, and many, like Doris, simply chalk it up to getting older rather than recognizing it as a signal worth paying attention to. We didn't change her medications dramatically. We didn't order a dozen new tests. What we changed, almost entirely, was her relationship with the 90 seconds surrounding how she got out of bed, day or night. 6 weeks later, at her follow-up, she told me the dizziness had essentially disappeared. Not because we cured anything, but because we stopped ambushing her cardiovascular system with sudden demands it wasn't ready for. That story is the reason I'm making this video. Doris did everything right by every conventional measure, and this piece, the transition piece, was still the missing link. If any part of her story sounds familiar to you, or to someone you love, I want you to type the word familiar in the comments. I read every single one, and it helps me understand how common this really is. Now, here's where I want to give you something genuinely new, something that goes beyond simply get up slowly, because that advice on its own, without understanding why or how to actually apply it, tends to get forgotten by the third morning. Let's start the night before, because this is the piece almost nobody connects to morning heart risk. What you drink and when in the evening plays a bigger role than most people realize. Many people over 60 intentionally cut back on fluids in the evening to avoid nighttime bathroom trips. That instinct is understandable, but it can leave you meaningfully dehydrated by morning, and dehydration thickens your blood slightly, which may make it marginally more prone to clotting right at the moment your cardiovascular system is already under hormonal pressure from the morning wake-up surge. Instead of cutting fluids drastically, many people find it more helpful to shift the timing, drinking most of your fluids for the day earlier in the afternoon and evening, tapering in the last hour or two before bed rather than eliminating water altogether. Second, and this one genuinely surprised me when I first read the research behind it, your sleeping position may matter more than people assume. Some studies on cardiovascular strain and sleep position suggest that lying on your left side may slightly ease the workload on your heart compared to lying flat on your back, likely related to how the heart sits within the chest cavity. This isn't a guaranteed fix, and it isn't right for everyone, particularly people with certain reflux issues or sleep apnea, so it's worth a conversation with your own physician. But it's a simple, free thing worth knowing about and discussing. Third, and this is something I almost never hear mentioned anywhere else, keep a small light source within arm's reach of your bed, A dim nightlight, a lamp with a low bulb, anything that lets you orient yourself without fully waking your nervous system into an alert state or fumbling in total darkness. Here's why this matters more than it sounds like it should. Sudden disorientation in the dark tends to make people move faster and more abruptly, exactly the opposite of what a stressed cardiovascular system needs in that moment. A calm, visible, unhurried transition starts with simply being able to see where you're going. Now let's talk about the sequence itself, because this is the part I really want you to take with you. When you wake, whether that's at 3 a.m. for the bathroom or at your regular morning alarm, resist the urge to sit straight up and swing your legs over in one motion. I know it feels efficient. I know it's what you've done 10,000 times without incident. But remember, the goal isn't to avoid an emergency that's coming. It's to reduce a small, cumulative daily strain on a system that may be quietly more vulnerable than your last checkup revealed. Start by simply lying still for a moment and taking a few slow breaths, in through your nose and a slightly longer breath out through your mouth. This isn't about relaxation for its own sake. A longer exhale relative to your inhale activates a nerve pathway involved in calming your heart rate, which is genuinely useful at the exact moment your body may be releasing its natural morning stress hormones. Some research on breathing patterns in older adults has found meaningful reductions in blood pressure response when slow breathing is practiced right at the point of waking, before any movement begins. From there, roll onto your side rather than sitting straight up from your back. This alone reduces the abruptness of the postural change your cardiovascular system has to manage. Once you're on your side, use your arm to push yourself up into a seated position with your legs over the edge of the bed. Here's a step I really want you to remember, because it's the one piece of this sequence with genuinely strong supporting research behind it. While seated, rotate your ankles in slow circles, 10 times in each direction, or simply flex your feet up and down. Your calf muscles function as a kind of secondary pump for the blood pooled in your legs, and activating them helps push that blood back upward before you stand, giving your circulatory system a head start. Research examining this specific movement found it meaningfully reduced the blood pressure drop typically seen upon standing in people prone to that dizzy, unsteady feeling. Sit there for a slow count to 30, not because 30 is a magic number, but because it gives your nervous system genuine time to catch up to the change in position before you ask it to manage an even bigger one. Then stand slowly, using your legs rather than pulling yourself up, and once you're upright, pause again before you take your first step. Altogether, this sequence takes under 2 minutes. It costs absolutely nothing, and it may make a meaningful difference for exactly the population watching this video right now. I do want to speak directly to one specific group for a moment because this matters to a lot of you. If you take a beta blocker, a very common medication for blood pressure or heart rhythm, you should know that these medications work partly by blunting your body's automatic response to sudden drops in blood pressure, which is part of what makes them effective for their intended purpose. But it also means your body's natural compensating reflex when you stand may be slower than it used to be. This is absolutely not a reason to stop or adjust your medication on your own. It's prescribed for important reasons. But if you're on a beta blocker and you notice regular dizziness upon standing, that's worth specifically mentioning to your physician at your next visit. And it's a strong signal that the slow stage transition we just walked through matters even more for you personally. Let me pause here because I know that was a lot of information, and I want to make sure the most important part doesn't get lost in the details. But before I bring it all together, there's one more piece to this puzzle that almost nobody mentions, and it has to do with your bedroom temperature. A room that's too warm overnight can subtly affect your circulation and how your body regulates blood pressure while you sleep. And some researchers believe a bedroom that's too warm may blunt the natural nighttime dip in blood pressure your heart relies on for rest. Most sleep researchers suggest a bedroom temperature somewhere in the mid-60s Fahrenheit, roughly 18 to 19 degrees Celsius, tends to support healthier overnight cardiovascular patterns for most adults. It's a small adjustment, it costs nothing beyond maybe adjusting a thermostat, and it's simply one more piece of the environment working with your body instead of against it. If you've made it this far in the video, I want you to do one thing for me right now. Type the word tonight in the comments if you're planning to try even one of these changes before you go to sleep. It genuinely helps me know that this information is landing with the people who need it, and it helps this video reach other people your age who are searching for exactly this kind of guidance and not finding it. Let's bring this all together because I know I've covered a lot of ground. Your cardiovascular system doesn't treat every hour of the day the same way. There's a specific window, spanning the last stretch of night into the early morning, where hormonal shifts, blood pressure changes, and the simple mechanical act of standing up combine in a way that matters more the older we get. None of this is about fear. It's about awareness and about a handful of small, free habits that work with your body's natural rhythms instead of fighting against them. Shift your evening fluids a little earlier rather than cutting them off entirely. Keep a dim light near your bed. Consider your sleeping position if it makes sense for your situation, and always in conversation with your own doctor. And when you wake, whether it's the middle of the night or your regular morning alarm, give your body those 90 unhurried seconds, the slow breath, the roll to your side, the ankle circles, the pause before you stand. None of this replaces your medications, your regular checkups, or the ongoing relationship you have with your own physician. It's not meant to. It's meant to fill in a piece of the picture that tends to fall through the cracks of a 15-minute annual visit. The piece about timing and transition that research has been quietly pointing to for years without it ever reaching most people sitting in a waiting room. If this video gave you something you didn't know before you clicked on it, please take a moment to hit the like button. It genuinely helps this reach more people exactly your age who need to hear it. And if you found this valuable, subscribe to Health Wellness. Because every week I bring you exactly this kind of practical, research-informed information about your body after 60, the kind that doesn't always make it into a standard doctor's visit. Your heart has carried you through every single day of your life without asking for much in return. Give it these 90 seconds tomorrow morning and see how it feels by the end of the week. Remember, this video is for informational and educational purposes only. Always consult with your personal doctor before making any changes to your health. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe to Health Wellness and hit the notification bell so you never miss a health tip. See you in the next video. C. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please